Les Miles is staying and is back out on the recruiting trail. How much work does he have to do to mend some of those fences that were broken during the 2 weeks of his uncertain future? We'll talk to our dual threat, Jerit Roser, up next on Talkin Tigers. Welcome to Talkin Tigers. I'm Jim Derry. Now that the regular season is over for LSU and we await Sunday's announcement of the venue and opponent for their bowl game, Coach Les Miles has already begun preparations for next year. Prior to a couple of weeks ago, some services had LSU ranked as the top incoming recruiting class, now just 2 months away from National Signing Day. But how much has that taken a hit? Well, let's bring in LSU beat writer and still the man most in the know in our Baton Rouge prep scene, our own Jerit Roser. And Jerit, what has been the biggest change in recruiting thus far over these past couple weeks?
Well, there was a string of decommitments right as the whole Les Miles speculation hit sort of a fever pitch the week leading into that Texas A&M game after a third straight loss. Not all of it ties back specifically to Les. Felipe Franks had been kind of, wavering for a while, and we saw him decommit and then commit shortly thereafter to Florida. But he wasn't the only one. I mean, even locally, we saw Clifford Chapman at McDonough 35 as a decommitment. A lot of other guys, maybe they didn't publicly decommit, but were certainly, there's a cause for pause for them to think what might be the coaching situation at LSU when they get there.
What kind of work is Les going to have to do to mend these fences and to assure all these kids that he is staying on at LSU, and not just this coming year, but that he's going to be there longer than 2016?
That's the biggest thing to me is every one of these visits that we keep seeing that not only Les, but Cam Cameron, Ed Orgeron, Frank Wilson, everybody's on the trail right now visiting guys, is after as heated as that speculation got, and to the point where that was supposed to be Les's last game in a lot of people's minds, the Texas A&M game. How do they convince young athletes that they'll be there next year and it's going to be a stable situation for them as they spend 3, 4, 5 years with that program? And particularly offensively, with all the criticism there and talk of even with Les staying, a potential change at offensive coordinator, how do you convince those prospects, a quarterback like Felipe Franks, if you try and swing him back, that there is some stability and certainty in his future? And
even Les thought that was his last game, obviously. And when you're talking about recruiting and this time of year, that even though you're preparing for the next game, you're still doing work behind the scenes on recruiting as well. So losing a week or a week and a half or however much time that he lost when he didn't know his future, he can't tell these kids he's going to be back. That obviously made an impact, and you saw Felipe Franks decommit during that period.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't want to lie to the kids. I mean, as best you can, you want to be upfront with them, and typically the athletes and their families appreciate that. And Les typically seems to be a guy who's going to be pretty upfront with the recruits from what we can tell. And so that makes it really difficult when he's standing there in front of the media saying, I honestly don't know if Saturday is my last game. And there was a strong likelihood that it wasn't going to be for a while there.
I think that was the shocker of all shockers. Let's talk about quarterback. We've touched on Felipe Franks in particular. Franks is obviously plan A at quarterback for this recruiting class. Is there a plan B? Jimmy
Smith has done a pretty good job, I think, keeping up with this.
And we'll talk to him next week.
Yeah, and he's been all over this throughout the week, and really even before we knew that Les was going to stay the head coach. The interesting deal with Felipe is he wants to enroll early, and so that crams down the time that LSU has to swing him back their way that much more. Florida has another prospect coming in.
Tony Eason's kid.
Exactly, yeah. and that doesn't necessarily sit well. They already had a commitment for this class, and Felipe comes thinking he'll be, a member of a two-guy class, and now they have another guy coming in that they like, and bring in 3 high-quality quarterbacks, as much as you like to say, compete and earn that spot, that's a lot of people at a position where you're only going to play one guy. And so that's
they can't all be Ohio State.
Yeah. I don't know if Felipe wants to go play wide out.
Right.
But that's a pitch that I'm sure he's going to hear and something he's going to have to consider. Beyond him, Dwayne Haskins is a guy that for a long time Jimmy's kind of kept an eye on, but it seemed like LSU was going for Felipe, and that was it this year. Now, as they move on, he's another name that pops back up. He's committed to Maryland, but Maryland's got its own coaching situation going on. And then beyond that, I'm not really sure. And even Jimmy mentioned arguably the top quarterback in Louisiana, Lindsey Scott, who's a Syracuse commitment. He's a guy that LSU coaches have liked, but he doesn't necessarily fit the mold of an SEC passer in an LSU's offense. But he's a little bit undersized, but he's really good.
Well, let's talk, before we let you go, let's talk about a prediction on where you think LSU might go bowl season. Announcement coming up Sunday. There have been speculation that they might go to the Citrus Bowl, a place they don't go, a bowl game they don't play in very often. But what an intriguing matchup that would be if these predictions are true, that LSU would face Michigan and Jim Harbaugh in his first season there.
Yeah, that prediction certainly caught a lot of people's eyes. Les's alma mater, Michigan, LSU, two powerful programs, and I don't really know beyond that. There's a few options out there.
What are some of the other options?
We were just talking about they could end up in Fort Worth. The Outback, I guess, is a possibility. Citrus seems like a pretty good chance, though.
So a good chance that they play on New Year's Day again.
Yeah.
After all the haters.
In which case, I might be in Florida for a week with that and the Under Armour.
I'm sure you would hate that.
I don't mind staying home, but it'll be fun.
Thanks for making it in the set. We have got a lot of work to do this weekend and next weekend, covering all 9 state championship games, and you'll be in the Dome for all 9 of them.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we'll see you this weekend and next weekend.
Yes,
Thanks,
sir.
Jerit.
Thank you.
For Friday's Extra Point, let's look where LSU has ranked the past few seasons in recruiting and what that might mean for the future. For today's show, we'll go with Scout.com's rankings, and we'll start with 2012. What does it show? That being number 1 isn't always an omen of future success. That year, it was Texas with the top honors, and the Longhorns have finished 8-5, 6-7, and 4-7 respectively. That coaching change worked out real well for them, didn't it? Alabama was second, followed by Michigan and Florida, and LSU was number 6. In 2013, it was the team that won the national championship in the 2014 season, and that's Ohio State, which had 8 top 100 recruits. Michigan, UCLA, Alabama, and Notre Dame rounded out the top 5. LSU was 9th that season. And in 2014, Alabama was at the top, 1 spot ahead of LSU, who nabbed some guy named Fournette, and 5 others in the nation's top 100. Florida State, Tennessee, and Ohio State rounded out the top 5. And last year, it was Southern Cal at the top. Yes, a Southern Cal team that had a coaching change midseason and finished second in the Pac-12 South behind Utah. Also in the top 5 were 4 SEC schools: Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, and Tennessee. Just keep saying Alabama, don't you? LSU was 12th. Well, we'll see where the Tigers finish in 2016 and if Les can make up some of the ground. That's it for today, but come back on Tuesday when we'll talk more about recruiting with our guru, Jimmy Smith. See you then.